All right, so I want to tell you a story about a friend of mine that I've known since the third grade. And I want to tell you about how when we were 19, he got this girlfriend that turned out to be, looking back, turned out to be a pretty gnarly narc and really had a negative impact on his life. In my opinion, ruined his life. So I want to share the story with you because I feel like it's really important to share these stories and these experiences so we can really observe what happened, like how everyone behaved, how this girlfriend he had manipulated my friend, and ultimately how my friend responded to what was happening. And then, fast forward 25 years, what are the long-term effects? Where are these people at? And ultimately, you know, what can we then learn from this? So, I'll tell you. So when I graduated high school, a bunch of friends and I got a house, and this is 25 years ago. And so we were 18, 19, and we got this house, and there was four of us all living together, and and it was really cool. It was a really fun place, and one of my friends, who was my roommate, was in college, so there's a bunch of college kids coming over all the time, and college girls, and the whole thing, and so I worked at a grocery store just right down the road. And the grocery store, it was like this organic natural food store, real hippie scene, a lot of yoga chicks, and I mean, you know the vibe. So, our house became like a big hangout pad for a lot of people, and and it was a really good time. Also, at the time, I was in a bluegrass band, and I was playing mandolin in that band, and we would rehearse at the house. So it was a real happening scene. So there were a lot of guys coming over and a lot of girls coming over. So my buddy, the one who got this terrible girlfriend, anyway, he gets a job at the grocery store. And so we're working there together. And there's this girl that's a cashier there. And him and I both worked in produce. And there's this girl that's a cashier. And she's, she's pretty cool. She's kind of shy. And I actually went to high school with her. She was a year younger than me. And I remember her being real goth. She was like real into everything dark. And she wore like, you know, black lipstick and eyeliner and all, that real goth look. And, whatever. I didn't really know much about her. But anyway, she started working at the store. And, and she eventually starts coming around to the house. And so she's coming around the house, and I can tell she's looking for a guy. And initially, she was like kind of looking, she wanted to get with me. But I had a girlfriend at the time. And so she kind of came on a little hot and heavy. And, obviously I wasn't going to have it. And so then she turned her focus towards my buddy. And she starts coming over more and more, and they're like flirting at the store and whatever. And I mean, I really don't know much about this girl other than that she was a little goth and she was kind of shy. But whatever, she comes over, and the house is like a big family, and everything we do together. We're always making dinners and hanging out and barbecuing and drinking beers and smoking weed and the whole thing. And it was a cool vibe. So she starts coming around more, and then eventually my buddy and her, they get together. So she's at the house a lot. And at first it was like, oh, whatever, it's just another gal, and they're dating, boyfriend and girlfriend, everything's cool. And I didn't think anything of it. And really what got me on the thinking like, oh, this gal's a little bizarre, was we always used to prepare food together. And anytime someone was making dinner, it was like we were always making dinner together and sharing. And never, never was, I mean, maybe if we were like making a snack, like I'd make a sandwich and that was good. But if like we're making dinner or barbecuing or hanging out, it was always like a household event. And we just really liked doing that. And I worked at a grocery store, and so did my friends. So we always had a ton of really good food. But one thing that started to happen was when this gal came around, and she was pretty much living at the house at this point, she started to only want to eat meals with my friend, with her dude. And so they would do this thing where she, they would like prepare food in the kitchen, and then kind of like go in a little corner and like eat their food. And I was always like, man, that's kind of weird, because we always are hanging out making food together. Why wouldn't you want to do that? But looking back, now I'm starting to understand what was happening. And so what this girl was doing to my friend was, she was doing the classic Narc move of isolating him. So she was slowly starting to isolate him from his friends. And this would happen more frequently. So more of their meals that they would share, it would just be the two of them, and then they would just spend their time in his room. And I thought it was strange at the time. Now looking back that I know what I know, I'm like, obviously, so she's trying to isolate him. So this is happening, and time's going by, and then eventually he's like, hey, I got to tell you guys something. And we're like, oh, well, oh shit, what happened now? But he's like, oh, so the gal and I are moving to a town with a university that's like 3 hours north of where we're living, because she got a scholarship to go to school. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to move out, and her and I are going to live together, and it's going to be great. and so that's the deal. And so they move out of our scene. He leaves. He goes with her to this other town so she can go to this big university and study, like, I don't know, whatever smart people study with scholarships. So everything's cool, and they land in this is like a few years. Everything's cool. They're living together. She's going to school. She convinces him to go to community college, so he's going to school. Everything seems great, like they come down and visit. It's all happy. It's all smiles. Everything seems cool. So they move into this duplex that they share with one of her friends and her friend's fiance that she grew up with. And it's a duplex. It's like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath on one side, and then there's a common wall, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath on the other. So everything's cool. Like, all the friends are hanging out. They're living in the spot. And I used to go up there and visit them a lot. And, she was a little uptight, and she was like real focused on school. And my buddy was always home. They had this weird cat, and he'd always be, fucking with the cat. And they were really playing house, and, I was happy for him. And this was, probably 2 or 3 years in. And you would think, like, okay, they're really building a life together. And when you see your friends doing that, yeah, it's sad to miss your homie you used to hang out with all the time, but hey, he's got a cool chick. And they're really doing the thing, and it's probably, this is what he wanted. And I remember him really expressing to me, if he came from a big family with, a ton of brothers and sisters. And so he really was into family. He wanted to get married and have kids and do the whole thing. So, she finishes her 4-year, and she gets offered an opportunity to do the PhD, but she's got to study in England, over in London. And, they've been together, 4 or 5 years already at this point. So it's like, he's like, yeah, cool, man. So they're doing the long distance thing. She's over in London, England, studying. Everything's seeming cool. And I'd pop in and visit him every once in a while. And he was going to school. And at that time, another one of our friends had moved in with him. So he had company. He had a roommate. And, everything seemed fine. And she was over there studying. And, what could go wrong? So the people that they shared the duplex with, this girl's friend that she grew up with, comes over one day and says, hey, I got to talk to you, to my buddy. And she's like, hey, she's not coming back. She's got another guy, and she told me that she wants you to pack up all her stuff and bring it over to our place. And she wanted me to tell you that it's over. And so that's it. And like, I remember my buddy called me, and he's like, dude, what, like, this is fucking crazy. Like, she won't even. And then, so what he immediately does is he's trying to call her, and like, what is going on? Because they'd been, talking all the time. he's trying to figure out what the hell was going on. So he's calling her, trying to, email her, call her, do whatever he can. And she's just straight ghosting him. Like, it's just, like, she doesn't want anything to do with him. Like he doesn't even exist anymore. And at this point of the story, from what I can understand, from what I know now, and what it's seeming like is, I think she had a plan the whole time up until this point. There's more to the story, but up until this point, I think she had a plan the whole time. And, back when we were working at the grocery store and she was working at the grocery store there, she knew that she wanted to move out and go to this college, this university. But I'm sure she knew that she wasn't going to be able to do it alone. And that, that's a financial burden, especially trying to rent a place and keep a house and then go to school full time. And so I think her plan the whole time was, okay, I'm going to this, I got a scholarship to go to school. I need to find a dude that I can, get my hooks in and then basically take with me, who's going to support me while I'm up at this school. And so she finds my friend, and then what happens? She starts to isolate him. And through that, that isolation, then she can just start emotionally working him over, because they're not hanging out with us. That was one thing, like, they would never kick it with us. And, like, I had a girlfriend at the time, and, like, we would all be kicking it. It was just, we're just hanging out, and just, that was what you did. But they were always in his room. So she was very intent on what she wanted. So she's isolating him, working him over. She eventually uproots him, gets him to move. And, he worked the whole time and supported the household. Obviously, she got some money from school, with the scholarship, and she probably got student loans or something. But he supported the household the whole time. So as soon as she doesn't need him, and, this is 4 or 5 years deep into their relationship, and she's off in another country, supported, because she's living there, and everything's getting paid for, through scholarships and whatnot. But maybe everything wasn't getting paid for because she gets another dude. And that was the call or the conversation that her friend had with my buddy, was like, hey, she's got a new dude. So it was probably this exact same scenario. She probably got just enough money to cover school, and she needed some fucking, dude to finish, to cover the rest of the costs. So without any warning, a conversation, anything, this chick just turns on a dime, drops my homie through her friend, oh, go tell the dude I've been with for the last, 5 years that I don't want him anymore. I've got a new dude. He needs to pack up my shit. So she's over there doing the thing. My homie's like losing his mind, because he was thinking, like, this is I saddled this pony. I'm going to ride this off into the sunset. And, he's tripping, man. And in this town, it's like a big beer drinking college party town. So, of course, he's just like saucing it up, trying to escape all this, smoking tons of weed, losing his mind, trying to get a hold of her desperately to at least have... he's just like, why? Why did this happen? He just couldn't understand why. He can't get a hold of her, even through the friend. The friend won't help him out. There's nothing that he can do. So he's just got to suck it up and basically cope with the fact that, the rug got pulled out from underneath him. And so he really tried to stick it out. So he kept the place. Our friend was living there with him. And he was still going to school, and he was like working a job, and he was just going through the things. But like, I could tell, man, that he was super bummed, and he was drinking a ton and just chiefing a ton. And he started to go to counseling through the college. And the fucking, yeah, dude, that did nothing. All they wanted to do was hook him in and then get him to start paying to go there like every week. And it's just like, you're just talking. There's no action. There's nothing. And like, what he really needed and what he wanted was closure. That was the whole thing with this relationship. Okay, whatever. You're together for like a while and the chick bails, and like, just give me closure. Like, it's over. I didn't want to be with you anymore. It's done. Closure would have solved everything for my buddy. but she would not give him the closure to the relationship. That will drive a guy crazy. That'll drive anyone crazy. So some time has passed. It's like a year has passed. Remember the duplex? Okay. So the people they were sharing the duplex with moved out. New tenants are going to move in on the other side of the duplex. Guess who the fucking new tenant is? It's the chick with her new dude. Yeah, she moves in and she's like acts like my homie doesn't even exist. Like where they lived together for so many years and everything they did in that fucking house doesn't even exist. She doesn't even know. She doesn't even want anything to do with it. She moves in the same fucking building. And okay, check this out. This is what's even more fucked. His bedroom wall is the same bedroom wall as her and her dude. Her and her dude's bed and his bed and a wall separates. And guess what's happening on the other side of the wall while he's trying to go to sleep? Yeah. Dude, could you imagine? I was like, what the fuck are you doing there, dude? Fuck those people. Get out of there and fuck that chick and fuck that dude. Just leave. Just cut, dude. These people are crazy. He doesn't leave. And so he hatches this plan like he's going to go he's going to try to like win her back on campus. So he's like after her to like wait. He's waiting outside of her classes. Like he's going to talk to her and she's going to, magically say, oh, I don't want to plow this dude. I'd rather plow you. Burp. No, that's not going to happen. So basically she's like telling the campus people, like, I don't want this guy coming near me. Like, I don't want anything to do with this guy. So his whole world is just crumbling. It's pretty much, it's toast at that point. There's zero resolve. She's on the other side of the wall with the new dude, the new him, just number two. And she doesn't want anything to do with him. And I told him, dude, just fucking bail that scene. So he moved back down, and the whole thing with the resolve, if you can't get closure and resolve with these deep relationships where you really go through it with these people, it will just torture you. And so he spent, he moved back down, and I had a place. We were living together, and we're like, I gave him a job, and we're working, and he would do this thing where he would like drive around the state into different cities and towns where he knew people, and then he would like try to get with these girls. He would get these girls, and then like lead them on to in like relationship with them, but it was all this like half-ass. Like he could never commit again to another relationship, so he got all these half-ass relationships started in all these different towns, and he used to drive for like days to like go meet up with these chicks in these different towns. And he had this whole scheme worked out. And I was just like, what are you doing, man? This is such a waste of time, waste of money. And one time, one of the chicks like bombed it down, and we were at the house kicking it. And it was one of his, he had like 3 or 4 of these chicks going out all at the same time. And she comes down and is like banging on the door and is like, oh, is he in there? What the fuck is he doing? And I was thinking like, dude, like what kind of person have you turned into now? Because this chick just treated you totally poorly and ruined your life. And now you're trying to cope from that. And you're treating women like shit, and you're leading them on and not being, you got multiple women going at once. Like, who does that? That's just like low level shit. And that wasn't him. But I could tell like he was coping. He was trying to cope. So he was drinking a ton. He was smoking weed a ton. And then he was having these half-hearted relationships with women that would only end in someone else getting hurt, which was probably these women. So he was, he's starting to take on what happened to him, and now he's doing that as a way to cope. So this just kind of like kept going. And then I remember, so he moved out, and he started to kind of descend into a piece of shit from him trying to cope. And like he now internalized what happened to him, and now he's doing that to people. So he kind of started to do that to me. And I told him, I was like, man, like, I got to just move on. You got to do your own thing. So like I kind of ran him off. And then he was running the same game in some other towns, trying to do the same thing. And then he goes on the PCT, and he decides, I'm going to hike the PCT and clear my head and try to, get some resolve with what happened to me. And, there's no resolve from that initial relationship from that chick just kind of ruining him. And this is years later, 10, 15 years later. And so he's on the PCT, and of course the PCT, it's like a big hookup scene. It's all young people, and everyone's like sleeping in each other's tent. So of course, he gets some little thing that he gloms onto. She gloms onto him, and it stuck with her. So he actually settles down with this chick, but like she's kind of like, oh man, like she's not the greatest, and I can tell he's kind of just like whatever, and they're together even to this day, but like him and her started to become like, he just kind of got worse of how he would treat people. And I haven't talked to him in over 10, maybe 12 years, because when I met my wife and she moved in to our house, I no longer had like a house and a free place to stay for people like him. Like he kind of set up all his friends as just people that he would use and take from. So, he had like, in all these different towns that he would always visit, he'd have friends that he'd stay with, for free, because, it's expensive to rent a hotel room. So I was one of those pit stops. And him and that girl that he's now with from the PCT, they would just travel all around. And that was their thing. They just travel constantly and just stay with friends. And, when I got with my wife, we had him down to visit, and they were like so fucking rude, and the chick was all full of drama, and my wife was like, dude, who are these people? Like, this is your homie from that you've known since 3rd grade? And I was like, yeah, because I was like building him up. I was like, oh, it's my homie, I've known him since 3rd grade, and we're like best friends. And she's like I hate to break it to you, but he's kind of a turd, and so is she. And and they were just there just to like have a free place to stay. They could give a shit about anything that's going on with me, or the fact that now I've got, I'm getting married and I've got this great, fiance or whatever. So they didn't care. So I just kind of cut him loose. And so, we have some mutual friends, and, I've heard that, yeah, no, they're living together back in the hometown where he grew up. And, I'm 44 now. And so we're the exact same age. Our birthday's in the same month. So he's 44 now, and he's with that gal, and they're not married, and they don't have any kids. And, he's just kind of working some job, and she's working some job. They're just kind of going through the motions. And, it's like, dude, that is not what he wanted from life. 100%. Like, he wanted something completely different. Because him and I had talked about it when we were younger, of like, meeting a cool chick, getting married, having kids, like hanging out together, playing with our kids. And in our friend group, some of us have done that, and we're off, married, with children, doing the thing. Like our lives are moving forward, and we're, we have families, but like he does not have that, and he's just kind of adrift with this chick now. And the older you get, man, like you can't have you're in your 40s, you don't want to be having a kid. So anyway, the likelihood of him really getting what he desired from life is extremely low. And so you can all kind of trace this back to the fact that, okay, this chick, she was obviously a narc, and what she did was she had a plan, and he was just a part of her little plan. And she used, emotional manipulation to get him on board, and he was just a pawn, in her world. And she had a plan the whole time, was get a guy that would support me so I can go to school, and then ditch him when I don't need him, and then do the exact same thing in England, get a guy to support me while I go to school, and then just continue that. And I don't even know where she's at. I don't even care. But, because of the fact that, there's no manual on how to cope from all this and how to process this and deal with it. And so my homie just got caught up in, the mess that we get caught up in by these people. And, he doesn't know how to cope. And so the way he coped with it, because the body is going to cope, the mind will cope, the psyche, it's going to happen no matter what. And that's just like processing and letting go. And it seems like in his case, the form of coping took on a negative effect. And that's happened to me in my life when I was, at a bad point, and I was naturally coping unknowingly, because if you're unknowingly trying to like make sense of things and release and just relax, you're just going to turn to what society has to offer you, and that's escapism. It's just like drinking, smoking, just hooking up with chicks, traveling around, just always constantly being busy. And that's what he leaned into. And it sucks that this therapy that he went to, they didn't offer any help for him, any kind of coping, nothing. So that was a complete waste. And then what's interesting about how he then he internalized the way that she treated him, and then he began to treat people that way. That's the behavior. To me, that's really the most interesting part of the whole story, is how he then turns into the person that, he starts doing what happened to him, to people around him. And that's why I cut his ass off, because I was like, dude, you can't, this isn't a relationship if it's just transactional all the time. Like, we have to be able to hang out without you needing something from me. And like, to him, that's not a relationship. So I cut his ass loose, which is fine. It's okay to let those people go. And hopefully, the door is always open. And if he can come around and, get his act together, then yeah, come back and hang out and meet my kids and the whole thing. But it goes to show that, and I don't think he's not a narcissist. I think he's just turned into someone who's sad and depressed and who is just, kind of a shitty person now. But, it goes to show, because this was 25 years ago, and that one relationship, and I think that was his first real serious girlfriend. And from that one relationship, it has derailed, in my opinion, it has derailed his life completely, because now he's just in some relationship that I don't think he's stoked on. He's probably drinking a ton still, probably smoking weed, and probably just, trying to just escape what he's feeling. So, I wish there was something in place, that could help us, because he is a good person, and he would have been a great father. And if he had the opportunity to have a good partner in life, he would have done really good for the world. He was a good person deep down, and I still feel that he is. But now he is so compromised emotionally that I don't know what would reignite that for him, to be able to actually, change the world, or at least affect the world and affect other people in a positive way. He had that capability, but I think that flame is snuffed out now, all because of a narcissistic girlfriend. Dang, man, who knew? So anyway, that's the story of my buddy and the narc that ruined his life. I mean, tell me what you think, but it was interesting to tell the story and reflect on what I know now about these narcissistic people and their tactics. It's the same old game, man. They just run the same fucking game. But if you don't know it, man, your whole life is just off the cliff. So anyway, that's the story. So I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.